Members of the company, this is your Places call. Places, please. Places for the top of the podcast. Places, please.
Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the glitz and not-so-glam of Broadway, education, and everyday life with Uncommon Sense. Join hosts Christopher Smith and Sharna Lopez as they bring you the best stories and shenanigans that seemingly prove how elusive common sense can really be. So take a little time for yourself to hang out with the dynamic duo Charnopher. And no leaving early, because you might just miss that 11 o'clock number.
Stand by music. Music, go.
Uncommon sense, the 11 o'clock
number. And we are Charnopher. On air.
That was so good. I was so quiet during that whole countdown.
You were so good.
It's because I'm warmed up now. Now I know what I'm doing.
There you go.
Now I know what I'm doing. Hello, Charna fans. Charno fans.
Yes.
What did somebody say the other day? What did they call it? Not Charno fans? Somebody in the office called it something else.
I don't remember what they called it.
I was like, that's not it.
Charnophiles. Charnophiles. Yeah.
Why is that so funny to me?
I don't know. Yeah.
It sounds scary.
Yeah,
right.
Charno fans. That's what we're going with.
Charno fans.
Gosh.
Yeah, we got this.
Perfect.
All right.
So on the heels of our last episode that we talked rain and lack of common sense during rain, specifically in Southern California, we thought it would be a good time to continue in the emergency section of chatter.
Of our portfolio.
Here we go. Yeah.
The genre. We're in the emergency genre. Oh man.
Emergency genre.
Okay, so Christopher, we've talked about discussing this a little bit within the last several weeks, because we did have a slight emergency at our school, which sort of prompted it. But then we also have talked about, other emergency situations. And I think, honestly, one of the, I don't want to say most intriguing, but it is very intriguing to me how people react in emergencies. And I think sometimes, to be honest, I'm really surprised at people who I think would be really calm and collected based off of their personality, like completely freaking out, and people who I think would like lose their mind being a lot more focused. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's this like, you go into this mode, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. What is your mode, Sharna, in an actual emergency?
I think if I were to speak, like to tell somebody how I think I react in an emergency, I think I'm pretty neutral. Yeah. But I think if you were to ask other people, I think I'm really calm and organized. So, perfect example, just this last week. And again, emergency has varying levels, right? There's a lot of difference in emergency. But last week during Tech Week, I'm out in the house and we just start hearing this weird, it sounded like an animal over the microphone. And we're like, what is that? And so like this weird thing. And, no, like kind of like crying. And then some kids come out on stage and they're like, stop. Mia fell. She cut her ankle. She sprained her ankle. She twisted her ankle, whatever. And, I went up there. I'm like, everybody move back. I was like dealing with it or whatever. And afterward, a few people like commended me for like, you're so calm. You're so like, move on. Like, because I think I know if it were me in the emergency, I would want somebody, regardless if my ankle was turned the other way or told if I would need some person to be like, we're good. You're here. You know what I mean? And so I think that maybe that's where my brain goes. I also think I am, again, this is going to sound like me talking so greatly about myself, but that's not why I'm doing it. I think on my feet. I think I can think in the moment, just in general in life. And I think a lot of people, that's hard for them. They need a little bit of time to process stuff, or they need to, and so I think in an emergency situation, I'm good at that part of it. I will say when it's done, I have like a reaction, like a actual, like I had to help a lady. I saw a car accident happen one time, and I immediately pulled over and I helped get her out of the car. Her arm was clearly broken, and I was like trying to help lay her down until the firemen arrived and everything. And I was so calm. And then I remember when the firemen were finally like, okay, you're good, you can leave. I got in the car and I was like shaking, like all crazy, because I think in the moment your body is like trying so hard to be okay, we got this, right? And then when you're able to take a breath or relax, then is when I have that reaction. Personally, me.
Yeah.
How are you? I feel like you'd be similar.
Sense. I am sort of similar. And I think I have learned, I used to consider myself extremely calm in emergency situations. And I still consider myself that, but I've had a few little things where I don't even remember the situations anymore, but I remember the feelings. And I think the more personal and emergent they feel, the less calm I'm able to be. Like if it was an emergency at school or something like that, I got it. Like, and I also, for me, in an emergency, time slows down. So I'm able to like I process things much quicker in an emergency than I do in my everyday life.
Yeah.
I'm like able to put on like superhero goggles, and it's like I see everything like extra vision in slow motion.
Yeah.
So that's good. Like I just even remember I remember when we were renovating the house right after we got it. And by we, I mean really Joy renovating the house because I was working all the time.
Good job, Joy.
So, yeah. And I came home. I think I had come home. Maybe I was already home. And I'm out in the driveway working on something. And all of a sudden, I think she came outside and was like, I think we should probably go to the emergency room. And I was like, okay, what happened? Are you okay? She shot a nail through her finger because she was using a nail gun. But luckily it didn't hurt too bad. But I even afterwards it wasn't terrible. But just because it shot clean through, so at least that was good. It wasn't like stuck in her finger, so that was good.
It went all the way through.
Yeah, because it was on an air compressor nail gun. Like they're strong.
Dang.
So it just went blink.
Did it go through her bone?
But I think it missed her bone. So I think it went like through her thumbnail, like on the side of her bone, just straight through. But yeah, but that one didn't shock me at all. But I think also because she was so calm.
Right.
And like not freaking out. I was like, okay.
So similar story with the one I like started to tell a couple episodes ago. I think too, when the person that it's happening to is kind of calm. So when Jerry cut his hand really crazy, we were redoing our floor in our very first house together. And he had hand cut with a circular saw the entire wood floor. He had, I don't know, maybe like 3 square feet left. He was almost done.
Why?
And it was right before-
Why are Jerry and Joy the same person? She like cut all of our baseboards for our entire house. Like literally did all our baseboards.
Yeah. Jerry loves it. He loves it. But I was inside. It was almost Christmas. It was just a couple days before Christmas. Or trying to get it done before Christmas so people could come over. And I was inside painting the girls' room because we were surprising them with like a under the sea Little Mermaid room. And I was like painting and doing this stuff. And I just hear like, babe, like he's just calling me like he needs a beer or something, right? He's like, hey, babe. Mm-hmm. And I walk out. He was cutting in the driveway. And I walk out and he is holding his hand on his shirt. He's wearing a white t-shirt and he is covered in blood, like splattered, like a horror film. And he's just like, I think I cut my fingers off. He said, just like that. And I was like, what? Now, I want to say, and I think when we tell this story, he and I agree on how it was. I want to say that I didn't freak out. I think I was freaking out, but I think I was like, you have to move, right? So you're just like, I'm in charge. I got to do this. But my thing in that instance is like, do we look for your fingers? Do we go immediately to the hospital? Do I, and so we spent like just a second. I was looking for his fingers and I couldn't find them. So I was just like, okay, we got to go. Now, this is where like so many of the things that happened were very funny. In the moment, they were not funny. But he got in the car and he'll tell you too, like holding your immediate reaction is to hold your hand, right? Like, is it going to bleed out or my fingers fall, whatever it is. But he was holding so hard. So I got him in the car and I could see him starting to like want to not pass out, but just start to, you know, I'm like, please stay awake. Please stay awake.
Woozy.
Yeah. So I'm like trying to keep him awake. And we just moved there. We had only lived there for I don't know how long. I didn't know where a hospital was. I didn't know how to get to the emergency room. And this was before you could throw it in GPS or anything. So I remember there was a place right around kind of like down the street around the corner. So I get down there and there's the little red cross outside of it. I'm like, yes. Okay. And I leave him in the car and I run in and I'm like, my husband just cut his fingers off. And she's like, ma'am, this is a convalescent home. I had driven him to a convalescent
You're a little early.
home. Yeah.
You've arrived a little early.
We were a little early. So the lady was so nice. She's like, she gave me directions to the emergency room. So I drive over there as fast as I can and we walk him in there. And then, you know, he's covered in blood. He's holding his, you know, hand.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, hello, how can I help you today? And I'm like, my husband, he has a circular saw. And she's like, great. Could you please take a seat? And I was like,
I'm sorry, what?
What? Yeah.
No.
And she's like, I need you to
Absolutely
take a
not.
seat. No, we sat there we sat there because in hindsight, there were bigger emergencies ahead of him, which is crazy to me. But we saw some guy go through, he had a pencil in the side of his head. I was like, okay, well that constitutes a giant emergency. Okay, we'll let you go first.
I need to know that story. That's the
wish
story
I knew.
need to know.
But anyway, I think I like responded well, you know, but when it is somebody like a personal situation, I think especially with kids, you almost have to trick your brain where you're like, you're good because you can't freak out because then the kid will freak out. But at the same time, you are freaking out because it's your kid and you're like,
Yep.
Oh, but I do think I respond well. There are some people, however, who I would never want to be in an emergency situation with them where you're just like, you are making it 100 times worse. Like, I understand that, but you got to calm down. So even last week or the week before, we had an emergency drill at our school, which then turned into an actual emergency. It was crazy. It was a crazy story.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need to get into the details of it just yet, but we were evacuated as a drill. And then it turned into an emergency situation where there was a bomb threat on our campus. And our school, for what we had to do, our school handled it well. There's a lot of room for growth and a lot of things that our school is going to talk about. But I do want to talk about the students because there is such a varying range. My students who are in 10th grade were chill as chill can be. They were like, cool, Mrs. Lopez, we're just going to sit right here. Okay, can we text our moms? I need to go to the bathroom. And we were helping them get to the bathroom. And I was giving them information. Okay, so my mom's here. Can I check? So mellow. My kids were so chill. Yeah. Cut to other students that I was hearing about. I had afterward just completely losing their minds. And I had one group of students that came up to me. They wanted information. They were hysterical. I grabbed this girl's shoulders very gently. I said, honey, you are okay. Nothing's happening right now. We are okay. And I don't know if she had just allowed herself to get so worked up, but I kind of was, I don't want to say rude, but I was kind of like, you're good. Stop. You're good. You're good. Like she just needed somebody to be like, we're all safe. Down. Everything's fine. Yeah. Cause she was losing her mind.
Meanwhile, my seniors were just out there like, can I go? Can I leave now? Can I are we having class? Are we going back? Can I just go home?
But I also think, okay, so with emergency drills or evacuations or things like that, sometimes I find that there's not a good, I don't want to say training, but when I worked in an office building years ago, there was a pretty big earthquake and we were on like the 6th or 7th floor of this office building and it was on rollers. You know how they build some of these bigger buildings now on rollers where it moves like this?
Right.
People were losing their minds. I'm like, I was trained. I
Absolutely.
grew up here. I was under my desk. That is what you're told to do in an
Yeah.
earthquake. Like, don't go running
Yeah.
down the halls where all the glass windows are. Like, I just was like, what is wrong? What do you think you're going to accomplish? You're gonna run down the stairs in a collapsing building? Like, I think
Yeah.
people just act crazy.
Yeah.
I don't
Their fight
know.
or flight kicks in and they just can't think.
Yeah.
And here's the thing,
Yeah.
Sharna, since we have a base level of nonsense that is non-common sense that is out there. And when you pile on like fear and like adrenaline and everything on top of that, like it's just gonna amplify the lack of common sense. So and that reminds me of a story. I don't know how old I was. I was pretty little, I think. I remember being in Las Vegas with my parents, and I think we must have been having like a family reunion or something. I don't know. So we stayed in Excalibur, and we were in one of the towers, and there was an earthquake, and the whole I think I slept through most of it. It was so much because we were up high that the chandelier was like swinging and almost hitting the ceiling. Like it was that much of a roll.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. And of course my parents didn't freak out. Like we evacuated as they requested. And I just remember being out in the parking lot and looking around and going, you people are from California. You people are from California. The rest of you, clearly not.
Yeah.
Because everyone from California was like, cool. We're all good. It's like,
Right.
oh, can we go back in yet? Like,
Yeah. And I think too, you're probably right that it is very based on the area you're in. Like, I don't know how calm I'd be if there was a tornado. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe that, like, if there was a tornado
would
warning,
be-
I would be like a little bit freaked out.
I would be getting a shovel and digging a hole that I can crawl into in the ground. Because
Well, and same thing with fires. Like, we
Mm-mm.
have fires around here, you know, so we're a little more used to those evacuations and be ready for that. Whereas somebody, I guess it is, and hurricanes and tropical storms, like you're, I guess, not ready for it.
But you talk to somebody
it
that
doesn't-
grew up in Oklahoma and they're like,
Yep.
there's a tornado. Just get in the cellar, carry on with your day, bring an
It's
iPad,
fine.
watch a movie.
Yeah. I
So-
also think it's this fixation sometimes. So I did notice that with a lot of our students where I was like, here's the information we have. That's it. Don't make something else out of it. Don't start like just this is the information we have. What about this? And I'm like, I don't know about any of that.
I don't know.
So just, keep it here. It's just that
Lower the
idea of-
temperature. Lower the temperature.
Yeah. And I think I haven't been in a ton of emergency situations. Knock on wood, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Please and thank you.
But, we watched this show at our house called What Just Bit Me. Have I told you about this?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's probably about 2 years ago now.
That's probably a no thank you for me.
So at first I thought that. And then, okay, so anyway, the show itself is about people who are either attacked or injured or bitten by animals in nature, out in nature.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so at first I was like, oh no, I can't watch this because I'm not going to ever want to go anywhere or do anything. However, it's really educational. So it really teaches you either like the mistakes that humans made and why, they're animals, right? Like don't be all up in a alligator's grill or he might bite you.
Alligators
talks-
and I are like tornadoes and I. We do not get along.
You would have
I'm
freaked
like,
out
hello,
in Costa
alligator
Rica.
Friend.
We went on
No,
that
don't
alligator.
tell me,
It
don't
was
tell me.
so cool. It was so cool. The tour guide on the boat could tap the water and the alligator would come up. Like they're little friends. And he would tap it and then the
Okay,
alligator
but-
would come up and he was right by the boat and
As
he would
all-
sit, like look at us.
Here's the thing. If I'm on that, I can be okay if I'm in the middle of the boat. I must sit on the middle.
Right.
And where the alligator cannot get me.
Yeah.
Because
There were some people freaking out.
Yeah,
I
I have an irrational fear of being eaten by an alligator.
Isn't that crazy though? Like those fears that like, and where it comes from. But hey, lots of people do.
Yeah.
So no No
Yeah.
offense to you. Lots of people have those fears. But this show, Christopher, is interesting because it teaches you, like, I didn't know how to take care of a rattlesnake bite. We should all know that in Southern California. There's rattlesnakes
We
everywhere.
should.
Right?
Yeah.
So the first time we watched this one where the girl got bit by a rattlesnake, she was doing everything that I think I would have done if I had gotten bitten or someone got bit, and it was all the wrong things. It's so it's really interesting. Like, that's what I like about the show is you like learning, okay, if this happens, you do this. If it's this kind of animal, you do this. If it's this, right?
Okay, do you remember? Because I want to know now. Do you want to?
Yeah,
do you remember
so
what
you
to do?
You don't tourniquet it. I would think you tourniquet it to like keep the venom where it is. Instead, if you tourniquet it, it actually makes it stronger to get through. It's trippy. Also, don't move. So if you walk and your body and you're moving, it starts to circulate the venom through your body.
Yeah.
So
that's what
you
I was
should have
that
somebody carry you out, carry you anywhere, right? Don't suck it out. A lot of people think you're supposed to suck the venom out of snake bites. Don't do that. It's not going to help. Yeah. And the immediacy of it is very, very important. Like,
yes,
you have to, don't be like, oh, we'll wait for the, like, you got to go. But watching these people in these emergencies, because they have the real people on there being interviewed, and some of them who are so like calm and focused and just, I had to do this. And then some of them that were just like losing their mind, you know? And it's interesting the reactions you have in emergency situations where, you know, some people it's life or death, right? Like you have to think quickly. First responders are like that, you know, and I also think you get a little desensitized to it when you're a first responder. You've seen so many things like this, you've gone through it, but the first time obviously is traumatic. It's very traumatic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think I'd like to say I haven't been in like an insane emergency situation, but I'd like to think that I would be calm, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest one is probably the Jerry one. I don't know if I've had any real emergency situations either that I've had to like navigate, which is not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a pretty big.
No, thank you.
Cutting your fingers off, like badly. I mean, that's a pretty. That's.
I mean, it's not life and death, but it is definitely like life and limb, literally.
Yeah.
So good job on that, Charna. Well done.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But I don't think you finished the story. Clearly, Jerry has his fingers. So how?
So
did that occur?
We got to this emergency room, and we finally got in, and he couldn't let go. Like he had held on so tight that they're like, okay, you got to let go, and he was like, I can't, you know. So they like kind of prise his hands off, and I was like, I have to look. I can't not look, right?
Yeah.
He didn't want to look, so essentially. Yeah. If you can imagine, the saw went in right here and cut like this. So his fingers were just
for
hanging.
Our listeners, that was pretty much right below your fingers across your hand.
Yeah, so it came in at his pinky, like under his pinky, about like, I don't know, like an inch down probably, and then like went up on a diagonal. So it severed all the tendons.
Following the curve of the fingers. Oh.
Yeah. But it didn't completely, so they were all like hanging. They weren't detached, which in hindsight was probably good because he would have had no fingers. I couldn't find them.
Yeah.
So the crazy part was they were like, we can't handle this here. This is beyond our situation. What? Yeah. Because
it's an emergency room.
I mean,
what?
Yeah, but he needed to go to a hospital where they could do surgery and stuff. So
I thought you were at a hospital.
Yeah, but they weren't equipped to do that kind of hand surgery. So I had to take him up to this scary, it's the USC Medical Hospital, like old scary hospital in LA. You see it from the freeway and it looks like a horror movie. It's like that giant, crazy, scary building. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. I took him there and it was like,
I shouldn't laugh at your terror, but that's hilarious.
Oh, every time we drive past it, I'm like, that's the scary hospital. So we took him there and they obviously like bandaged it up and gave him pain, stuff or whatever. And so we went to that hospital. And the crazy thing with that hospital, it's USC. They are like the top hand surgery hospital in the United States.
Wow.
So, which is great. But that also meant if they have this amazing surgery program, I don't know, whatever unit there, like he's going to get tiered to the importance of the surgery, right?
Ah.
So they were like, we can leave you here. It's December 23rd. They're like, we can leave you here and put you on the list, but you may not be home for Christmas. Like, you may not get your surgery by then. And so we're like, okay, well, what's the other option? They're like, well, we can like, they didn't use the term whip stitch. I don't know what they used, but we can close it up. And so it's not correct, but we can close it up and wrap you, and you can go spend Christmas with your family and then come back and get the surgery. So that's what they did. They like stitched it just enough to sort of like get it back in place. We went home, we had Christmas, and then he was scheduled on New Year's Eve, a couple days before New Year's Eve. And he got in there and he was scheduled, and then a motorcycle accident happened. And that guy's going to take preference. Then a snowboarding accident happened, and that guy took preference.
Come on.
So he finally had a surgery. I think it was New Year's Eve. Because then we spent New Year's Day in there. I brought champagne or whatnot. Yeah. But then that leads to that whole story about when they shaved his leg. And
yes,
when I went to get him, and he does not come out of anesthesia
crazy.
well. I've never been completely under anesthesia like that. I've like for my wisdom teeth, it's not the same. Man, he was so sick. He was so sick.
Oh.
And he just wanted to go home. He was like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
And I remember driving home, and I was going like 20 miles an hour. He's like, can you please slow down? Can you please slow down? I don't, I'm like, babe, I can't go any slower.
I can't.
Yeah. He doesn't
we
do
would
well
be
with anesthesia.
parked. We would be parked on the freeway.
Yeah. But the crazy thing was, I think if you ask him what the worst part was when they were trying to take the stitches out, like to, and it's like got scabbed over and all the gauze is all, he just lost his mind.
No, thank you.
Sometimes, no offense to nurses, but sometimes I want to be like, I understand you do this all the time and you got to just kind of tough love, but also like that hurts. Like just be like, I remember being like, just stop doing that. I know it's a fine line.
It is. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, I feel like don't call me out. I feel like all nurses are related to Nurse Ratchet in some way.
I think, yes. I think I've had such great experiences. Like my labor and delivery nurses for both of my kids were like the best people. Like
stellar.
So awesome.
Love it.
So great. There were just a couple nurses dealing with Jerry with that I was like, just give him a second. Like he's going to pass out from that pain. Ugh. It was a lot. And I think those things too, it's like such a process.
Yeah. Well, why didn't they just do that? Like, I mean, I know zero. I know negative things, but why didn't they just do that in the surgery? Like, why did they have to do all that pre? Like, you're going to go in there and fix it. I'll just do it then.
So because they couldn't leave it all hanging like that, they had to like at least try and connect it as best they could. They couldn't connect the tendons, but they could connect the fingers back on.
I'm talking about, I understand that, but I'm talking about the removal. Like, couldn't you just remove it all in the surgery? Like what?
Yeah. I agree with that. I think maybe they wanted to look at it with him and see like whatever. The crazy part too, I remember they were trying to give him like, it's not Novocaine, but whatever anesthesia in there, and they would shoot it in and it would just come out because there was a hole. So they'd shoot it and then it would just like shoot out, and they kept trying to give him a shot and then it would like come out the other side. It was crazy.
Sure,
it was crazy.
I'm going to have to put a graphic warning on this episode.
I mean, he's so lucky he still has his fingers and we'll take it. I mean, there's still, his pinky's still a little like down, like he can't straighten it all the way up, but yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
it's crazy.
I'm glad he's okay. That's insane.
And that's definitely the biggest emergency I've ever had to deal with. So if that's the biggest part of it, I just had, speaking of kids being injured, one of Sebastian's classmates, her little sister just broke her femur at Sky Zone.
That's a bad one. That's a bad one.
And get this, I know the family enough. Like I've met the mom. She's so kind. And I only found out through social media, but Sebastian says the poor little girl wasn't even on trampoline. She was just running up the stairs. Like, when you think Sky Zone, you're like, oh God, the broken bones, the poor thing. She just fell wrong on the stairs. And I think when it's your babies, like that's where I would think I would have a little bit of a hard time when you see your kid in that much pain. Right? Like that's where you're just like, I'm really strong and I can stay calm in an emergency, but you take on that feeling of like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, oh,
Yep.
so
I
sad.
had a very tiny inclination or experience where I did something like that because Grayson did not break anything. But when he was little, I don't know, it was probably like he's not little now. But it was probably like a year or two ago, probably 2 years ago. He was just having an issue where he couldn't bend at his hip. He couldn't bend and he couldn't
Mhm.
bend his leg right. And long story short, he had this it's like a leftover from a virus that he had. It was weird. But he
Mhm.
couldn't bend his leg and we're like, we're gonna need to go to at least urgent care and be like, what's happening? And I could not get him in the car seat because I had to get him and he was just like screaming and it hurt so bad and all these things. Now Grayson
baby.
is definitely not how do I say this nicely? He's a bit of a principetta. And so I'm sure it wasn't quite as bad as he was making it seem, but it sounded like I was murdering him when I was trying to put him in this car seat. And I was just like dying. I was like, I'm dying. I have to do this, but I'm dying.
Because you feel like you're doing it to your kid.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a similar
And
situation.
he's like begging
with Ruby,
me. He's like, Daddy, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want to go.
Please
don't do it.
don't. Oh, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
no.
And I was like, I'm dying.
Ruby,
I'm dying. My
she
heart
was
is
at
dead.
the bottom of the stairs. I think she was maybe like 18 months old, maybe. And Sebastian fell on her. Like he fell on her. And screaming, and she would not move her arm. She would not move her arm at all. And I was like, when they're that little, you don't know. I couldn't get her to sleep. I couldn't get her. She would not move her arm. So we're like, we got to take her to go get an x-ray,
Yeah.
And I couldn't take her into the x-ray room. Jerry had to do it because they make you move the arm and lay it all around. And I stood outside that x-ray room just bawling because I could hear her in there screaming. And Jerry, I was like, thank you for doing that. Cause I couldn't even do it outside of the room, and he was in there and he's like, yeah, they had to move it and turn it. And she was just screaming. It is really hard when it's your kid. Yeah. Another one was when Ruby chipped her teeth. When she fell and chipped her teeth when she was really, really little. And I had to literally hold her down in the dental chair. Like her little baby cry eyes looking up at me. Like, what are you doing to me, Mama? She doesn't remember. But that's you good. Do, you're like holding, like pinning her down while this dentist, and she's just like, Ma! It's horrible. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, the worst.
The things we do as parents. Yeah. I know.
But,
well,
oh my gosh.
I think though, emergencies in general, I'd like to think you and I handle them well and with calm, but I think that is something, just remaining as calm as you can and thinking in the moment. I like that you said that time slows down for you.
It does.
And I think it is just like it's also an amazing response of the human body, right?
Yes.
Like what an amazing response that we have in our bodies to go into that mode of like, okay, and then afterward, maybe you can have a little meltdown.
Right. Exactly. I wonder if I was a first responder, if that would wane or if my body would always be living in that, Well, as far as like the hyper focus responders, like that, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe because you get used to it. I think like I could never do that job. Like I had a friend who was an ER nurse. Mm-hmm. Man, he would tell me these stories, and I'm just like, how are you not just like on edge all the time? Like seeing all that and being around all that all the time. I mean, what amazing people that can do that. Like, thank goodness there are people who function in a way that is, I mean, I think people look at us, and I'm not joking, but they're like, how are people teachers? I really think people think that. Right? Like everybody has their calling, I guess.
Gosh.
Crazy.
I want to do a whole episode sometime maybe on what it means to be a teacher, because I heard some things recently that I'm like, what? How?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should do that. Write that down.
Writing it down.
So we don't forget.
I'll go put it. Yeah. Writing it down right now. Ready? I'm going to type it. 5, 4, clickety click, click, click.
In your notes.
In my notes.
All right. Charno fans, stay safe, everyone.
That's right. Stay safe. But if there is an emergency, stay calm. keep calm and carry on. All right, Charno fans, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Charnopher Official. Check out uncommonpod.com for more information about us. Maybe get some merch. And on that note, Charnopher out.
Be-de-dee.
It's an emergency.
This concludes another episode of Uncommon Sense. If you're ready for more of this fresh, hilarious, and unique perspective on the world of entertainment, education, and life, be sure to subscribe right now to catch every episode. If you gasped, laughed out loud, or even snorted, share the show with your friends and aspiring entertainers because, let's be real, sharing is caring. For more Charnopher, tune in to their witty insights by checking out the website uncommonpod.com or connecting on social media. Tune in next week and get the real insider scoop on another episode of Uncommon Sense.